Welcome back to the channel and welcome here to my kitchen. Today I want to show you how to make taco meat using ground deer meat. This is going to be more of a master recipe because, to be honest, I don't cook with recipes a lot unless maybe I'm baking. I just kind of know what I like and know what tastes good. But this is super easy. You're going to be able to put your spin on it, but I'll show you what I put in it. A few things before we actually start cooking. I want to just talk about the ground meat. This meat here has come from a processor. In the future, we would really like to grind our own meat. As far as I can tell, this meat does not have any fat ground in with it. So deer meat is a very lean meat, which is good. It makes it nice and healthy. It's a clean meat. But if you don't have fat in the ground meat, you really kind of have to dress it up to make it taste good. My dad refers to sometimes it has a wet dog taste, which I know is funny, but a lot of people get turned off from deer meat because it's not cleaned well. Sometimes you really have to take the painstaking efforts to clean it good for it to taste good. But then with ground meat like this, there's not a lot of fat present, so you have to know how to dress it up to make it taste good. If you just put this meat in a pan with salt and pepper and that's all, it's just really not going to taste all that great. So I've got a pan here on the stove. It's getting hot, and we're going to go ahead and get started and add the ground meat to the pan. Since this meat is so lean and there's not any fat ground into ours, I probably will maybe add a little bit of olive oil just to keep it from sticking. But if you have fat in yours, you probably won't need to add anything. I add just a little bit of olive oil to keep the pan clean here. So this is a very easy recipe. It's very easy to make. So I just kind of stir it around a little bit, get it broke up like this, and then I'm just gonna let this kind of slowly cook here. I've got it probably like on 3. This stove here gets really hot, so I just leave it on medium because we're gonna add some vegetables and some spices, and we don't want it to cook too fast. But I'll just be letting it brown. I'll stir it, ever so often, and then when it gets a little browner, I'm gonna go ahead and add some seasoning. So let's talk seasoning while the meat is getting browned up there. I've got salt, of course, pepper, and now really you can add whatever seasoning you want. If you wanted to just have a pack of taco mix that you put in there, you could totally do that. You can make it spicy, not so spicy. I don't really like a lot of spice. Cumin would be a good spice to add for taco flavor, but I don't really love cumin. But I've got an all-purpose spice here, got some oregano, of course garlic, and I've got this seasoning. I have absolutely fell in love with this. We've not had it that long, and we've already used at least a quarter of it. I just really like this, but I will say Mountain Berry, it has a little bit of a sweet taste to it, so if you're not crazy about that, you probably won't like this. I'll try to leave a link in the description on where you can find this. I got it from a Sportsman's Warehouse. But any kind of seasoning that you like. I will say be careful if you use an all-purpose seasoning, because it usually has salt and pepper in it, and I have made that mistake before and got this meat super salty. So if you're going to add both, dial back the salt that you add. But this is up to you. You can add any kind of spice that you want. I'm going to go ahead and add some spice. Now this is one of the keys, I think, to this recipe is we really want to dress this meat up. We want to give it a lot of flavor because it doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own. So we're going to kind of spice it now, and then we're going to add some vegetables, and then we're going to still spice it again. But it's important to spice it, kind of this initial time while it's cooking. We'll let that spice cook through a little bit, and then we're still going to spice it again. And you can see this meat has got a little bit of liquid going there, but because it's so lean, I'm definitely not going to drain it. And if you had beef fat in your deer, I probably, as long as it didn't make tons of fat, I probably also wouldn't drain it because you want that fat for flavor. So as far as how much spice to add, again, that is kind of your preference, but this is not a lot of meat, right? So I don't think that you need to add a lot of salt. I'll put some in my palm like that and salt it like that. And same thing with the pepper. I'll put it in my hand and go from there. I like to sprinkle. That's kind of how I measure stuff, is in sprinkles. I just look at it. Like, that's enough to me. Now with the oregano, I just dust a little bit on, because remember, we're still going to season this again. Now, garlic, I'm never afraid to put too much garlic because I love garlic. And then I'm going to go on with just a little bit of this because it is pretty sweet. If I can get it open there. Maybe about like that. And then I'm going to do just a tiny bit of this all-purpose seasoning because remember, this got salt and pepper in it too, and we've already added that. So stir that around. Now it's brown enough, I'm going to go ahead and add some vegetables. If you don't want to add vegetables to your taco meat, you don't have to at all, but what I've got here is some peppers and onions. Onions would definitely make this really good, but again, you don't have to if you don't want to. You can just kind of stir them in and see what amount you want. I think I am going to put all of this. And then sometimes I'll make this meat and I will just put it in a bowl and have more of a taco bowl than an actual kind of taco in a tortilla. And that's nice if you have the vegetables because it just makes the meat go a little further. So we're going to let that cook down. Those vegetables, it's not going to take long for them to get tender because it is peppers and onions. They're already pretty soft and they're cut into very small pieces. So just let this kind of cook down a little bit, watch it, and then we're going to season it again. This has cooked down a little while now, so now I'm going to add some more seasoning. I'm just going to follow up with what I've already added. The second seasoning around, you don't have to add as much because it's already been seasoned once. But I will add just a little more here. I'm not going to add any more salt. I wouldn't suggest that. I think once you salt it once, it doesn't need any more. You could add a little more pepper. We'll stir that back in, and then I'm going to show you the last ingredient, which is truly the secret ingredient to making this super tasty. The secret to making this so good is butter. If you've been on the channel before, you know that we have a little saying here, more butter, more better. This is a grass-fed butter. That's really only what we use around here, but I put a big old chunk of butter in this, y'all. This just gives it a super rich taste. This will enhance all the seasoning that you've added and just make it really rich tasting. Now if you wanted, you could add lime juice, you could add Worcestershire sauce, you could add soy sauce if you wanted to. I have a coconut amino sauce. That's a replacement for soy sauce that I add sometimes. You can add anything else like that you would like at this point. Now, I don't always do this, but what you can do is either get a piece of tin foil, or if you have a lid that will fit your pan, and you can kind of turn the heat down and just cover it, and that steam will just guarantee that those vegetables get cooked. At this point, the meat's really already done, but what I like to do to see if the vegetables are done is just use a fork and see if they're tender. They're pretty tender. I'm going to put the lid back on, make sure the heat's turned down, and just keep cooking it. It really doesn't take long for this to finish. You don't want your vegetables to get mushy there, so I think that's done. I'm going to turn the heat off. But you can kind of see once it kind of cooks down like that and it almost takes on that glossy look, that's the butter. So you know it's going to have a nice rich flavor. Meat is still steaming there, but it looks so good I want to try some. Get it up close here for you to see. The meat really does cook down nice, and you can tell that it's just all blended together and it looks good and tasty. My favorite thing about this recipe is how easy it is. You could have this meat thawing all day, and when you get home from work, you can cook this in 10 minutes. It's super easy, but it's super good, super healthy. Like I said, deer meat is just a really lean, healthy meat. Now, you could do this exact same thing with beef if you wanted. The thing with beef though is, like I said, it has more fat, so it already has more flavor. But with this deer meat, especially if you don't have that beef ground in like we don't, which hopefully someday we'll get to grind our own, then you really have to dress it up to make it taste good. Now my dad helped me with this. He helped me with this recipe. He actually kind of showed me how to do this. He is a whiz in the kitchen. Him and my mom both. Of course, if you've been on this channel, you know that they cook a lot. If you haven't, I'll leave a link in the description for you to check out her channel because she cooks all kinds of super delicious things. I think the secrets to this recipe is seasoning twice and adding the butter. So seasoning when it's just getting brown, cook it a little bit, toss in your vegetables, season it again, add some butter, and it's really that simple. So now I want to taste this and see how it is. Again, you can add your own season, you can put your own spin on this, but I hope this will just kind of give you some ideas if you were like me and you never really had deer meat ground until I met my husband. We never had ground deer meat. My dad we always canned it or had it and kind of fried on the stove. We just didn't have it ground. So I had an abundance of ground meat when I got married and I was like, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to cook it? So I really love this recipe. That's good. It just has that nice, super rich taste. You can taste all the seasoning, and it still tastes like, you know, lean meat, but it's not just kind of plain and blah, or as my dad would call the wet dog kind of taste. I would say with this recipe, do not be afraid of over-seasoning. I would err more on the side of over-seasoning than under-seasoning. It's really kind of hard unless you're just adding a crazy amount to over-season this. That'll be it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed just seeing how I make taco meat out of ground deer meat. I hope that if you have ground deer meat, maybe this will give you a new way to cook it. You definitely have to comment below and let me know if you use ground deer meat a lot, if you have other recipes that I don't know about, or if you tried this one, you have to let me know. As always, thank you for watching. God bless you, God keep you, and I'll see you on the next video.